I'd like to talk a little bit about expressive writing because it's something I'm very passionate about. It's the work that I do at the Lombardi Cancer Center. Years ago, I worked in the Arlington Public Schools, and I was introduced to poets who came in and worked with children. And I found that they were helping these kids not just write poetry, but put roots down in their academic life so that they could actually do better. When I was in Arlington, the Vietnamese immigrants were coming in, and they came from a war-torn country, and they were very upset. And I found that my friend Sandy Line, the poet, was able to help them write what they were feeling, explain their despair, and then do their academics, and I found that quite extraordinary. He gave teacher workshops. I participated. I found personally that it made a big difference in my life to write my thoughts and feelings down without worrying about grammar or spelling or somebody else reading it and filling it full of red marks, which often happens in school. So I was thrilled with this new type of writing that didn't require outside inspiration. He calls it writing from the poet within, and it just means you always have a stockpile of things to write about. So I went back to school and I got a degree, a master's, in transformative language arts at Goddard College. And it was exactly what I was looking for. It wasn't creative writing. It wasn't something that was academically focused. It was a type of writing that just allows thoughts and feelings to be on paper, to be expressed, and then you're aware of the cathartic feeling of that process. So I was there for 2 years. I worked initially with brain-injured adults and found that very moving. People who had really lost one type of ability or another through language started improving and finding their way back. And so that sort of made me committed to doing this writing work. While I was at the brain injured program, someone there asked me if I would meet the program director at Lombardi, and I was happy to do that. I actually had written my way through cancer in my family. My husband was diagnosed at 37, and my mother died in her 70s. But both times I found that coping with the loss, coping with the crisis, was manageable with the writing that I had learned through this program. And it just kind of made me even more dedicated to making this type of writing my life. So I talked to the people at Lombardi. They loved what I was doing, and they said, we want you to complete your practicum at the Cancer Center, and we want you to apply for a job to bring artists in, which is what I was doing in Arlington, to help patients and staff and families. So that's exactly what I did, and I've been here for 13 years. And every day artists come in, but on Tuesday it's writing day, and that's my day to be an artist, to set my managing job aside and go to the patients directly myself and introduce the idea of writing, knowing that writing wouldn't necessarily be the first thing people would turn to for a good time. And yet once we start writing about, sister stories or a favorite summer as a kid or whatever, and emphasize thoughts and feelings, they forget all the worries about writing, and they're full of stories, and they read them and they write them and they share them, and they are transformed. I've seen any number of people change through the process of writing, find out who they are, find out what's important. I've seen people leave their jobs, professional jobs, and decide to be chefs or storybook writers or whatever, because the writing allowed them to tell the truth about who they were and what was important to them. I have a number of stories at Lombardi that I think sort of testify to the power of this type of writing. But when I was first here, there was a patient who was very depressed, and one of the doctors asked if I could go see her. And so she was my first client. And I went up, and sure enough, she was in bed, and she was kind of slumped and very unhappy. And I told her about the program. I told her there was music, and there was art, and all these things. And I had journals with me, and I said, have you ever written your thoughts and feelings in a journal? And she said, yes, but only good thoughts, and I don't have any good thoughts about being here. And I said, okay. And I had some dark-colored journals, and I said, well, why don't we take this dark journal, and you can keep it for your dark feelings and see if that helps. And she took it, but she looked very doubtful. So when I visited her the next day, she was a different person. She was sitting up in bed, her shoulders were squared, and she said, wow, that journal writing really works. And I said, yeah? She said, oh, yeah. She said, they were coming in all night, testing me and waking me up and making me mad, and so I wrote all about it in my journal. Look. And I looked and I went, whoa, you really didn't hold back, did you? And she said, no, this is really helping. But you know what else? She said, that morning, when it was time to do my vitals and have the doctors come in, I said, wait a minute. I said, first I'll have my shower, then I'll have my cup of tea, then you can come in and test my vitals. Oh no, Miss So-and-so, you don't understand. I don't think you heard me. I'm going to have my shower and then my cup of tea, and then you can come back. And they did. And from that moment on, she was a changed person. Her stories poured out into her journal. Beautiful, beautiful stories. And to the end of her life, she had these beautiful sayings that her children now have, that were recited at her funeral, that became her legacy. Time after time after time, I have people coming to me saying thank you, even though they look very doubtful when I handed them the journal. And I'm delighted to have that kind of anecdotal evidence. But my supervisor said to me, this is a research hospital, Lombardi is, and so you need to do research. And I thought, gosh, I'm not a scientist. I'm not sure how to go about that. But I talked to different people on the research teams and found a great group of people to help me figure out how to design a research study. And so we went to Dr. Chesson and asked if we could work with his patients, and he was very supportive. And so we created a protocol and got IRB approval. And we accosted patients while they were waiting for their doctor's appointment. And our team was very cordial and very friendly, and the patients were very accepting and ready to participate. So we asked them, we said, while you're waiting for your doctor's appointment, would you like to write with us? And they said, sure. Of the 90 people we approached, 63 said yes. And so we asked them to write, how has cancer changed you, and how do you feel about those changes? And the reason we ask that is the research that has been done on the health benefits of writing indicate that if you put your feelings on paper, not your to-do list, not what needs to be done, not your shopping list, but how you're thinking, how you're feeling, those are the things that get overlooked, especially when you have a cancer diagnosis and you're overwhelmed with all this new information. So they wrote for 20 minutes. They were interrupted, which is what we wanted, because the research has been in pristine settings, and the suggestion was try it in a real-world setting like our clinic. So the doctors came and took a blood pressure, and their husband looked over their shoulder and said, what are you writing? And lots of, interruptions, and yet the writing continued. What we found is the people who said in the survey that the writing changed the way they thought about their cancer, that group of people expressed and told us about improved physical quality of life when we did the follow-up survey several weeks later, to what they call a significant level, that it was the survey and the research was scientifically proven and supported the 20 years of research that had already taken place about writing and health. So we now have evidence, not just the wonderful stories that I've learned and heard, but actually scientific proof that this writing can make a difference in how you feel. So we have taken that on to other patients. I've worked with medical students. When they come in weary from a day's work and learning, jaws clenched and so forth, we introduce them to a writing idea. And so I talk about games when they were a kid. I pass out marbles, and I say, show me the one that you like best and tell me why. And then I say, write about how you spent after school time as a kid. Who did you play with? Where did you go? What did you do? What were your favorite things to do? And so they started writing, and as they wrote, their faces relaxed, and the smiles came up, and even a couple of giggles happened, and then we shared the writing. And the stories were hilarious. This one very sophisticated young man in his white coat talked about calling Bobby and Jimmy after school, and they would all, do you want to go dig holes today? Yeah, we want to dig holes. So they would go out and dig holes, according to his story, until it was time for dinner. And that was what they did all the time. Well, one story would be a catalyst for the next one. If he's going to talk about digging holes, then I can talk about the time I pushed my brother off the garage just to see if he would fly. And everybody was laughing. Everybody was sounding almost childlike by the end of that maybe 20-minute session. And I ended up by saying, you don't need me to take yourself to a place where you can relax, where you can remember who you are, and you can refresh yourself so you can be the best you can be for your patients. That's what this is about. So you don't have to be in crisis to benefit from this type of writing. You don't have to be an adult. I really think that this type of writing should be happening in schools. I think everyone should sort of be in the practice of writing to express themselves, writing to be sure they're on the right track of where they want to be. A wonderful story with my own grandchild. She was here at my house, and she was very young. She was maybe about 3, and her parents had gone away for the weekend. And she was worried. She was homesick and teary-eyed several times. So I said, Grace, let's sit down and we'll write about how you're feeling. And so she said, okay, Grandma. And she sat next to me, and I said, tell me how you're feeling. Well, she's very sad. You know, Mommy and Daddy have gone away, and who knows when they'll be back. It's going to be a very, very long time. And I'm thinking, okay, they're coming back tomorrow, but I understand. So I'm writing, you know, exactly what she says. And I said, what else? And she said, so, you know, I just don't know, I can't know when I'm going to see them and all that, but I guess I'll just play with my baby brother and just, you know, hang out with Grandma until they come home. So I guess it's okay. Feeling better? Yeah, says she. Okay. So that night before bed, we watch a Shirley Temple movie, The Little Princess. And in that movie, Shirley's dad has to go off to war. And Shirley is left very, very sad and bereft. And at that point in the movie, my granddaughter turns to me and says, Grandma, I think Shirley needs a journal. That's when I knew that it doesn't matter what age, that this is intuitive, it's easy to understand, it's fun, it's not about judgment, it's just about expression. And life is about expression. There are conferences on what happens to people when they don't express. And the answer is, it's not good. When feelings are held inside, everything goes wrong. We just become confused, we become upset, it affects us physiologically. So the practice of letting our feelings flow through this type of writing called expressive writing is really essential. And how something so simple could be so important, I can't tell you that. But I know that through the research, through the practice, we know that expressive writing can make a huge difference in how people are feeling when they're celebrating and when they're in crisis.